Hi, welcome to Think Tech. We are raising public awareness about energy, diversity, globalism, and technology. This show is center stage, and we're the diversity portion of that chain. My name is Donna Blanchard. I am the proud managing director of Kumupuhua Theater. I am here today with my guests, Marian Lyman Mercero and Mark Branner, and we are going to get to them in just a moment. I can't wait to talk to them. But first of all, I want to let you know that we stream this show live on Ustream.tv and Spreaker.com. All of our shows take place Monday through Friday from 1 to 5 p.m. And those shows are also all archived on thinktechhawaii.com and on YouTube. And if you would ever like to join us in our downtown studio audience here in Pioneer Plaza, please email jfidel at j@thinktechhawaii.com. Now to my guests. Marian Lyman Mercero and Mark Branner are the playwright and director of the show Eddie When Go, the story of the Upside Down Canoe, which was produced at the Hawaii Theater last month and entertained 10,000 adults and children. Thank you so much for being here. I'm very anxious to talk about the story itself, how it came to be, and the magic that you created on stage at the Hawaii Theater through this. And we've only got 45 minutes, so.
Story and magic.
Okay, story and magic. Here they are. So let's start with the story first. I have only been here in Hawaii for a little under 3 years, but from the very beginning, I have heard the legend of Eddie and Eddie When Go. You were there. You were on the boat. Do you mind starting from there?
Okay. So March 16th, 1978, we set sail off of Magic Island, and 6 hours into the voyage, the canoe was sailing with her starboard hull starting to go underwater. She was starting to fill up with water. I was not on watch at the time. They used to have a hale in the middle of Hokulea, and I was snug in there with 7 other guys. And my brother, who was captain of the voyage, called all hands on deck, and we went out. The first thing I saw was Norman Tianaya bailing water as fast as he could, and the water was coming in, I noticed, faster than he could get it out. And within 5 minutes of all hands on deck, that 60-foot double-hulled canoe had slowly done a huli and turned over. So she was capsized in the middle of the Kaiwi Channel, actually maybe 5 miles away from Lanai and Molokai. We could see the lights of both islands.
Oh, okay. And
so then somebody, said, make like Opihi. We made sure that everybody was there, the heads were counted. And
make like Opihi, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Opihi is a limpet that sticks to the rocks.
Oh, okay.
So we were
sticking to the boat.
Sticking to the boat. And somebody offered to go for help. And my brother said, let's wait and see what morning brings. We figured we would be in the air traffic pattern come morning. But we had drifted away from the air traffic pattern, and there were no planes flying over us. And about 10 o'clock, one of the crew members had just taken the surfboard. I was the first one on it, just wanting to relax from standing up and throwing up all night, and just wanted to sit for a while, then lie down for a while. And then one of the guys just took it and paddled off, and a C-130 big plane flew directly over us, and he came back. He'd been gone for like 15 minutes. We didn't know where he was. That was Snake Abraham Ahi. He came back because he thought that was our rescue. We thought it might be our rescue as well, but it just flew on. And about that time, there was a discussion by the officers, and it was decided that Eddie would go. He was the guy that had offered to go. They were all capable watermen, many of the crew, but this guy had surfed, 30-foot Waimea. He had been a lifeguard. His instincts were to go out and save lives. And so he got on a 10-foot surfboard, tied it a leash to his leg. It wasn't a proper leash, but it was a rope that was tied onto the board, and he tied that to his ankle, and as he paddled off, we said a prayer. He had been told to wear his life jacket. He didn't really want to. He tied it just loosely with the straps around his waist because he thought it would be in the way of his paddling. He wanted to paddle on his knees. And we said a prayer, and he paddled off. About 5 minutes after he left, life jacket came in the direction he had paddled. Later that afternoon, a ship came towards us. We figured it was our rescue, that he had made it to land, because that was about how long he thought it would get there. It would take to get to land. And the ship came very close to us, but then turned broadside and then headed off, and we were looking at its stern.
Can't imagine
Yeah.
what you must have felt when that happened.
That was a drag. And then it was night again, and we had drifted back into the air traffic pattern. So we're shooting flares, and several planes flew over, probably 15. One coming, going to Honolulu, one coming from Honolulu, one, just back and forth, and they're shooting the flares. They're about to put the flare gun away, and one more plane came, and they decided to shoot, and the plane flew over us just like all the rest. They shot again, shot one more time, and that plane banked and circled us. And then rescue came out in the form of a helicopter, Coast Guard helicopter. And basket was lowered, and Noah swam over and got the radio out of it. My brother asked, can you read us? And there was no response, and he realized it was a one-way radio. He said, can you read us? Blink your lights if the answer is affirmative. The lights went blink. Then the second question, have you seen or heard from Eddie Aikau? And the lights went blink, blink. And so he said, there's a man out there on a surfboard as of 10 o'clock this morning. And he had a strobe light, he had a couple of oranges. And then we saw another Coast Guard helicopter soon after doing the zigzag search pattern. And that's when the search began. It officially went on for a week, and with family and friends for another week, and then Pops Aikau called the search off. And we had a service at Waimea Bay where it was said that a greater love hath no man, that he give his life for his friends. And that's the Bible verse that's on the plaque out at Waimea Bay. So it's a story that I've told in a much less rushed version to a lot of young kids in the state and adults. And it always kind of ends, on this very sad, tragic note. But we were rescued. And so I thought I would write it from a point of view of the sea creatures who may have witnessed what happened. And that's how the book came about, and then I adapted it to a play, and then now the magic begins.
And we're at 10 minutes. Okay, excellent. So let me go back for just a moment. Thank you very much for sharing all of that. How long did it take you to write the book initially?
I did it over a summer. I took the Hawaii Writing Project at Kapi'olani Community College, and there's a wonderful method of elbowing. So you read a little bit of what you've written, and then you go back and you write some more. And every day I'd read a little bit, and they'd be going, and then what? And so it's so encouraging. And so I go home and write more. And every morning I would get there early, and I was outside a classroom that was just overlooking, Kapi'olani Community College sits up on that hill in Kaimaki and overlooks Coco Head and the bays there. And so I could just imagine, the whale and the dolphin and all my characters. And I've spent quite a bit of time in the ocean myself, surfing, paddling, coaching paddling, and we see turtles, we see dolphins, the occasional monk seal. Actually, that's how he came into the story is a whole other story. But so I did that in 2000. It didn't get published till 2008. So I'd gotten rejected by several publishers, and I'd kind of shelved it. And then I was sitting there with a publisher, and I said, I'll send it to you, and he wanted it. And it's quite a long story, children's story, but he didn't want to edit it. He liked it the way it was, and so we got an illustrator, and Melissa De Sica, who actually at age 25 did all the sketchings, was about to do the watercolor, was diagnosed with leukemia, wanted to stay on the project, so it took another year. This would have come out in 2007, and she passed away soon after she did the illustration.
Oh, goodness.
So it's, you know, illustrated by somebody who actually was looking death straight up.
Yeah, her images are very soulful.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
Yeah. And I don't have any from the book,
Yeah.
but you just have to get the book.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Have you written anything else?
Prior to that, I'd written, actually, I don't know if it's a textbook, but we wrote it at school. The chaplain at school and I wrote a book called Character Education. We sent a manuscript out, and it came back in 4 volumes. So with a value of the month, 18 values for 2 years worth, and 1 for each of the 9 months of school, and then 2 partner values. So actually 54 values are emphasized throughout this program, and that's been used in several different schools all over the country, and I understand even internationally.
Oh,
so it's
sweet.
called Character Education.
You somebody.
Legend in my own mind.
Any other stories?
Yes, a story that was published in a book called Hawaiian Myths Made New, and it's a story. We were supposed to modernize Hawaiian legend, and I modernized the story of the naupaka plant, which you might know is that one that grows by the ocean, and it has a half flower.
Oh,
and then the match.
The other one is
in
the mountains. Yeah.
So I modernized that story, which I hope to turn into a play and enter into the Kumukahua playwriting.
Well, I hope you do. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, awesome. Well, and thanks for bringing that up. The workshop that you were a part of at Kapiolani College is still going on, isn't it?
Yes, that Hawaii writing project is an ongoing thing, and actually my play won the Residence Prize at Kumukahua.
Oh, wonderful.
I forget, I think in 2010.
Well, yeah, before I was here.
Yeah.
I would have remembered that. The program at Kapiolani and our playwriting contest are nice ways to stick your toe in the water and at least put something out there, get something off of your computer and in front of someone else. I'm really glad that you did that.
Yeah, it was fun to do.
And okay, we're on our first break, so you're next. You've been very patient. Thank you. You're a good listener. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short break. We are coming to you live from Pioneer Plaza in the heart of downtown Honolulu, very near Kumukahua Theater, and we'll be right back.
Aloha, my name is Daniel Luke, and this is my co-host, Ing. We'll be here every other Monday on New Media, The Bleeding Edge, on Think Tech, talking about the intersection of social media and the news. We'll cover technology, trends, and other fun stuff. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I'm here to keep you honest, so that's my job, to remind you of everything you've forgotten and to challenge you at every point.
Excellent. My wife tells me that I'm wrong about quite a lot.
Hi, we're back. We're live. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I'm Donna Blanchard, and I'm talking with Marian Lyman Mercero and Mark Branner. And now, Mark, we'll get to you. Thank you. You teach at U of H in Manoa in the theater department.
I do.
What are your classes? What's your focus?
My specialty is Theater for Young Audiences, so TYA. It's sort of the acronym that's being used these days.
Oh.
So yeah, I teach theater for children. I teach a lot of puppetry classes, masks.
Oh, okay, cool. Puppetry.
Puppetry.
Well,
at the college level, no,
yeah.
no less.
You know, a lot of I think people who haven't seen any sort of puppetry within the last 10 years maybe are thinking like Kukla, Fran, and Ollie. you know. Puppets have come a long way.
They
There's
really
some
have.
incredible work being done.
Yeah.
So, and we'll get to some of the images of your puppets for this show pretty soon. But can we go back a little further? What brought you to? Have you always enjoyed children's theater
Oh, sure. Well,
or theater for youth?
yeah. My background actually is in circus. That's an embarrassing truth about me. I was a clown with the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Oh, I
so
have a
actually
fear of
dropped.
clowns.
Yes,
Excellent.
many people do. I myself
I don't.
am in a 12-step recovery program. My wife is a therapist. Somewhat all true. I did drop out of college, and I joined Ringling Brothers at the time. Operated a clown college, and so you had to audition to get into that. And after clown college, you auditioned to get into the circus. So I actually did that and left a really nice scholarship at UCLA for a while, much to the chagrin of my parents, and traveled the country as an 18-year-old clown on a train. And that really, was so formative in all of my, I think, just aesthetic development. Even though there are certainly terrifying things about many aspects of circus and clowning, at the heart of it, it's a popular theater form. And so theater that's accessible, that's family friendly, that anybody, regardless of age, the best, I think, children's theater is one where there's multiple generations sitting together and enjoying it for different reasons. Much like I'm weeping during, Finding Nemo, because I'm sitting next to my son and thinking, I know that emotion, I know that, so that's what I love about that popular theater form.
There's a lot of integrity in clowning, and what I know of clowning, I joke. I used to have a fear. I'm much better now. But when I was in college, we studied Jacques Lecoq
Sure.
School of
Right.
Clowning, and I was really surprised to learn at the amount of character integrity that goes into that work. It's not shtick.
Right.
There's character development going on
certainly,
there.
yeah.
So you don't need to be embarrassed
Okay,
when you say
good.
that. I worked for Circus Vargas for a short amount of
okay.
time.
There
Not
you
much
go.
of a competitor, but and I was in admin. So you were doing that, and then how did you end up? You went back to school,
I
obviously.
did. I finally made it back to UCLA and then spent some time in China and did some focus on Chinese theater, a regional form of the Chinese theater tradition, like traditional Chinese theater, and that led me to Hawaii, actually, because they have a very strong focus on Asian theater, and so I came out to the program about maybe 13, 14 years ago to University of Hawaii to get my MFA, thinking that I would focus on Asian theater, specifically Chinese theater. But when I got here, I really felt myself pulled back into this love of popular theater forms, and there was also a really strong program in what they used to call youth theater. We've subsequently changed it to TYA, Theater for Young Audiences, and that seemed to incorporate all of my many strands of circus and clown and popular theater and theater for audiences of all different ages. And so went from there and worked for a while in the Los Angeles area, and then have been back about the same amount of time, I guess. You've been here about 3 years.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
As an instructor.
And do all of the theater students going through U of H, are they required to take some of the classes in?
At the undergrad level, everybody is required to take something from all these many disciplines. So certainly there's design classes and acting classes. Certainly the Asian theater classes are a prominent part. And yeah, it's really nice that they've included TYA. So I get people that have never even thought about theater for children. What does that mean? And they'll come into a class and go, I had no idea there were theater companies dedicated to 2-year-olds, working with kids with autism. What? And so it's really fascinating that that particular field is really a growing field in the global, theater culture.
Yeah. Well, theater is a really marvelous conduit. The reason I'm at Kumukuhua is because that's the conduit I chose to be in theater of place. I wanted to be involved in that. But there's so much art therapy that happens with theater without people even knowing it.
Right. Right.
I think that happens with places like Kumukuhua also.
Sure.
So how did the two of you get together? How did that happen?
Well, the education director at the Hawaii Theater, Eden Lee Murray. I was actually in London teaching for the study abroad program at UH Manoa. So I was in London, and she typically had this September slot for an education family show. And that particular company disbanded, kind of fell apart, and they said, well, we need something else to fill that slot. She had been handed, I think, a script previously by Marian. I don't know all of the details of when she first encountered the script and didn't think that that time when she was handed it was the right time to produce it. So she sent me the script and said, I think this is the right time to produce it. I'd like you to read it over and consider directing it, which I did in London. And I said, I don't think I'm the right guy for the job.
Did you? Why did you say that?
Well, when you read it, and I think it's much harder to read, when you read Pidgin especially, it just is hard to read Pidgin. I can understand Pidgin really well now, especially, but when you read Pidgin, like, I don't get them. I don't get anything. What's going on? And there's Hawaiian words, and I thought, I'm a newbie, and this is a story about Eddie Aikawa. I knew about him. I was like looking up on Google, finding out more, and I thought, I don't know. I don't want to be the guy that kind of slaughters that story, I just don't want that pressure. So I declined, and she's like, okay. And I said, if nobody else comes to mind, I'm really interested. I love the idea of it. I just don't know if I'm the right person. So she said, well, let's get together when you come back. So she, Eden Lee, brought Marian and myself together at the Coffee Bean in Manoa about a year ago, I guess, and said, what do you think? And we just started the conversation about it.
Oh, good for her. Well, Eden Lee was the one who introduced me to you also, so she's your guardian angel.
She really is.
And originally when you finally agreed to do it, said, yes, I'll take this on. And I can't even imagine looking at those characters. Were you thinking puppets initially?
Well, no. I mean, how detailed do you want to go? But the idea was that the September slot, was going to be a small touring production. So she said, plan on a touring show with about a $3,000 budget. So what used to come in there was, we have a touring show ready. It's going to go to all these schools around the island. And then we just bring it into the Hawaii Theater for a weekend. And we just make it a little bit bigger by bringing in some banners. That's kind of what she said. I'm like, all right.
Bring in some banners.
Yeah, bring in some banners. So, when we thought about that, we thought we'd do a lot of projections of Melissa's work, because they were lovely projections. And I thought the only way we can do it on a limited budget is to have a guy say, I'm a shark, and then project the image of the shark behind him. But then I told Marian and Eden Lee I'd love to turn this process into a class. So we developed a class. Just basically the class was taking my graduate students in TYA and saying, how do we turn this into a show that works theatrically? Because it works on the page as a story, but it didn't necessarily jump off and say, this is how you do it on the stage, because there's whales and sharks, and how do you do that effectively? So as we just started, brainstorming ideas, we just felt like this projection idea didn't do justice to the story. We wanted to see these characters. I mean, it's a tutu wahine whale. It's supposed to be huge. And how do you create, this wonder on stage that you hope the audience of second, third, and fourth graders feel when they hear those characters speak? And so it was a bit of a negotiation with Eden Lee, and she really bought into all right, throw out that $3,000 budget, let's go a little bigger, and it got really big. So that by the end, I mean, we had a 24-foot long, humpback whale on stage. That was very awe-inspiring when it came out. It was like, adults and kids alike would be like, no way.
And I think, Zuri, could we get photo number 1 up? I think that's the tutu wahine whale. Is that her?
Yeah, that's her and her grandson. Yeah, Kaleo.
Oh, okay. Now, okay, so the woman who is standing there, she is
the actor playing Tutu.
Okay.
And so you see a little bit of a different puppet technique, that the Kaleo character is actually holding the head of Kaleo. But since the Tutu is so massive, when we put her on the head, she's just hidden behind that head. So she, in a way, kind of, I don't know, philosophically, she's the spirit, the voice of the Tutu, but not actually attached. She would sometimes kind of put a hand on the Tutu whale, but she was kind of the wisdom character. so she seemed to work as sort of a character, as an actor, with just upstage this giant puppet that represented her body. And then what was really nice about the smaller whale is that we got so much articulation out of having it as three people. So when he moved, he could really swim. So the back tail could really move.
Yeah.
And then he could shake the front head and really create fear or create interest. And it just, you know, you knew instantly that it was three people controlling it, but just kind of like that, seeing the warhorse puppets and how magnificent they are, you know that there's actors that are there the whole time, physically present. So it was kind of this, I see it, but I believe it at the same time.
It's amazing how quickly you buy that.
Yeah.
I think as an audience member, you just forget that you see a person here. Okay, we've got some of the others.
Eden Lee said one night after the show, she heard somebody walking out and saying, I saw these people dressed in black holding these segments of a whale, and then at the end, I just saw a whale. How would they do that?
Yeah. And so, yes, you have, there's the head of Tutu here, way at the back, and Kaleo over on the right of the screen. And then there's Mano, the shark character, and there's Mr. Honu and Lele, the dolphin.
Manu looks a lot more friendly than I imagine the sharks.
Yeah.
But I think that's good for your audiences. That
Yeah, it was a lovely entrance. He came on very threatening, and the puppet, you know, could kind of swing back and forth on his back. So he had this very menacing entrance, you know, and the kids would go, a shark, you know, and he could lift up this big head, you know, even though we saw his face doing the whole thing, he would lift it up over the head of the turtle, and the turtle would be quivering, you know, and shaking, and then, oh, I don't like him, I don't like to eat turtle, you know, and instantly we were kind of like his friends.
Aw, nice. Okay, we're going to go into a commercial. We'll be right back. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. Stay put.
Aloha, my name is Kenneth Lawson. I'm your host here at Life in the Law. I'm really interested in law as I practiced it for 18 years before coming to Hawaii. I practiced criminal law and civil rights law on the mainland. Now I teach law at the University of Hawaii Law School, William S. Richardson School of Law, and I bring in guests who are very current on legal issues that affect your life here in Hawaii. Come and join me every Wednesday at 1 p.m. as we explore how the law affects you, how the law is changing, and why it's important that you should care about what's going on in your community. See you then.
3, 2. Hi, we're back. This is Center Stage on the Think Tech Hawaii Digital Series. I am Donna Blanchard. I'm talking with Marian Lyman Mercero, which I apologize. For some reason, it doesn't want to come out of my mouth. Mark Branner. I'll just say Mark Branner. Let's go ahead and look at the third picture that we have. This is the last one that we have. Oh, there she is.
Yeah, there she is in construction. And the McCall family did a brilliant job of really making these lifelike. And so, I mean, so much work, right? It's a wooden frame covered with different parts of styrofoam for the shaping, and then the whole of that covered in a lycra material, and then painted by their son. It was really a family art project.
So it's a family here on the island. You didn't call someone in Chicago to come out and do this work.
No.
And what's the weight of the heaviest of those pieces?
They're heavy. I don't know. I mean, maybe they're 50 pounds.
We started with one actor holding each segment,
Right.
and it ended up with 2.
So how many actors total are?
We actually started with
operating
5, and it turned out being a 7-person puppet because there were scenes where Tutu is talking, and they're standing on stage for 15 minutes having to be kind of present. And so we just had people in black hold the front and the back. And they really disappeared, like Mary was saying.
Yeah, I still can't get over it. The first time I saw, you know, a modern, someone other than Kukla, Fran, and Ollie, which I don't know why I'm picking on them, but the first time I saw that, I was amazed. It was a horse, you know, maybe this tall, on a table, talking with another character, and it was just an actor. It was 2 actors operating this guy. There was a lot of articulation in it, and they just vanished.
Yeah. It is magical.
I wonder what it is about the human brain that makes us look at what we believe is, you know, what allows us
It's like
to do
magic,
that.
right? I mean, it's like you wanna see the trick, right? So it's almost like misdirection in some ways, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Willing
Clowns do
suspension,
magic.
willing suspension of disbelief. We'll go for it. I want
Yeah.
that to be a real horse.
Yeah.
So the actors in the show, the operators, were they? Oh, and how did you feel about the puppetry?
Oh, that
When you
picture,
heard about it.
That picture there of Tutu Whale, I had to see it. I heard Eden Lee says, you have to go see it. And I drove out to Kahulu, and I just was like, you know, it was like the illustration just came to life. I was just totally blown away, and I was sending it out to all my friends going, sneak preview, sneak preview.
Oh.
And people say, how did you conceive of such a thing? And Rachel, right? And I don't know if you nudged her towards the Julie Taymor book, but the gal that designed these puppets, now the McCall family built them, but the gal that, well, and they did a lot of the engineering, but she told me she read the Julie Taymor book, right? Lion King, I guess, about puppets. And in one night, 300 pages, she got so excited, she started drawing the next day. And so I say, this had nothing to do with me. If it was left up to me, Mr. Mono would have worn a cap with a dorsal fin on top. Eva Bird would have just ran around the stage with her arms outstretched, and Tutu Whale would have been a big woman. It was, I mean, that was pretty much my vision of the play.
So when you heard about the puppets initially, you were
I was kind of
right
like,
away.
this is going to be interesting. And then when I saw them, I couldn't believe it. It's just so amazing to me. And, you know, Rachel sat next to me during opening night, and she had not been to any rehearsals. She had not seen her puppets on stage, and she sat there weeping when each one made their entrance. And then, you know, the things they were doing, she was so moved by it. I don't know if you saw that.
I saw her after the show. She was crying.
Like seeing her
Yeah.
children come to life.
Yes,
It
was just amazing. And it was so fun. I'm so glad that she ended up sitting next to me. I just kept grabbing her.
Oh my.
Oh, and to see how they were so awkward in the beginning, I was thinking, I'm not sure how this is going to work. And then how they, every night, they'd have a new little thing, and they breathed, you know, like you all say, you know, they became those puppets. And that's how they disappear. I guess that's the magic.
What an awesome experience it must be for an actor to put character into an inanimate object like that.
Yeah.
How long were the puppeteers, the actors, were they your students?
Many of them were from UH Manoa, not all of them. And we had an open call audition, and we had a lot of people come. And, we didn't even have the puppets at that time, so we didn't audition anybody with puppet experience. We just believed that it could happen. And it took, a couple weeks of a lot of doubt on everybody's part that this was a good idea before, because I kept emphasizing you have to act through the puppet. It's not about you, and this is so hard for actors to get, that they have to channel all of those impulses and all of that energy through the eyes of this wood thing, you know? But when it's done well, it's just magical.
They totally got it.
Really magical. And the kids, you know, and not just kids, it was so fun to see that experience of young audiences with parents just enthralled with that, you know, and hearing the story through these voices that you didn't imagine could really work on stage, but it really did. You know, it's magical.
Well, I'm thinking, this is terrible. It seems to me that it would be easier to put a lot of character into the head of the animal than like if you're one of the middle sections.
Tail.
Right.
Well, the tail's got some all kinds of options
yeah.
there, but you're a little more limited.
I'm the belly.
Whoa,
What do I
okay, there I'm
do?
done.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot more. When you think about a fish swimming, it is all.
Right. That was a big challenge as well. It's not just the you know, main actor, if you will, holding the head, but the other people behind him making that feel like it's one body and not these three pieces that are disjointed, which we had so many mistakes early on. It's like, oh, the head is, you know, 5 feet in front of the next section.
I think that's where that line, come on, tail,
Yeah.
keep up, tail. Kaleo would say about his tail when it was lagging behind.
Because it had been.
It was.
How long was your rehearsal period?
Actually, it was about 6 weeks. It was pretty intensive. I wanted the actors to go away, learn all their lines, and come back with the puppets ready. and more or less that happened. So that, you know, the first day of rehearsal we'd be off book and just working with the puppets. And the McCalls did a great job over the summer building all these things so that when we got into the first day of rehearsal, we could really start like going, I hate, you know, so we could get that out of the way. The first 3 weeks were just sort of awful. But then once we got past that point, we just felt like, yeah, it's starting to happen.
And I understand, and I'm really deeply sorry I didn't get a chance to see it. We took a show to Maui the weekend when you had the public performances. But I understand that the character of Eddie was the one character that did not have a body. Is that right?
It was voiceover.
It was just voiceover work.
Yeah, and played by his brother.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then the captain's voice, my brother, was played by my brother. So he was playing our brother's voice.
Wow.
So that was during the capsize scene. And then in the pre-show, in the beginning, Mark had the idea of these guys who were acting like these Beach Boys were talking to Eddie as though they were at Waimea Bay and he was being the lifeguard, which he was out there. And so Clyde was the voiceover of Eddie responding to them. Yeah, so that was a pretty fun moment.
That's awesome. So in your script, you chose to have him not physically represented.
Right.
I mean, only
Right.
through a voice.
Right.
Well, what made you choose to make this a children's book rather than
You know,
tell
I
the
think
story in
it's
another way?
third grade, fourth grade. It's fourth grade
Fourth grade
in
at
public schools and third grade at Punahou, where we focus on Hawaiian studies, and so that was the age that I was always asked to go out. It started originally at Hanahau'oli. Soon after the capsize, one of the teachers asked me if I would come talk about my experience, and then it just kind of expanded, and I would pretty much tell anybody who wanted to listen. Kind of interesting, after a traumatic experience, I think men, as a rule, tend to shut down, and women tend to open up.
Let it out.
And since I was the only female on board, I was just telling this story, and it was therapeutic for me. And I felt a real kuleana, a real responsibility to tell the story of Eddie, because I felt he did us honor. And there were some, my brother met with the Hawaiian Air pilot who had rescued us, had seen us, spotted us, and he thought we were a bunch of drunken Irishmen on St. Patrick's Day. But he had said that somebody had passed in his family, and he was wondering if whatever happened to Eddie, maybe, somehow there was a connection made that he happened to be there, because he said that he was delayed 2 minutes and he had never been delayed before. And he thought it would be an amazing calculus problem to calculate our drift and his delay. He said that chances were probably 1 in a million that we were rescued. So,
Oh my goodness.
so I just thought that there was always something magical and mystical about the story itself.
Yeah, I agree. And you honor all of us by telling it and by having written the book. And on the show, I love to talk with people about what they do and how they do it. And I usually also ask why. Why would you want to write this as a children's book? I would ask you why puppets, but how could you have done it any other way? You honored the story in the best way possible by doing that. And I think it's very cool that you went to the students and made it a collaborative
Yeah, it was really
answer.
a collaboration. It really was.
So what now?
So we're hoping it might, as Mark says, get legs, but I think that's what they say in, I like to think of this place as the mainland, but some people call the continent the mainland. Over here it would need to get wings, actually, to get to the outer islands. But we understand that there's somebody interested in it going to Maui, and I'm putting feelers out. I would hope that it would get to all the islands. And Eden Lee talks about remounting in 2016 when the canoe returns.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, yeah, we should say that the play going up coincided with the
Mhm.
Hokulea
Right.
on its world round trip.
Yes.
Yeah,
And my
voyage.
son actually just flew down to Samoa. He'll be getting on the canoe sailing to Aotearoa, to New Zealand, in the next few days.
You know, after what you went through, it's kind of amazing that you still have so much water in your life,
Yeah.
don't you think?
It kind of, yeah, when I don't get in the water, I feel my gills are drying up,
Oh,
so
oh,
it's kind of a
okay.
need.
It must be.
Yeah.
So I'm glad the therapy has worked for you to get the story out and,
Yeah.
and keep going with it. And I'm really glad to hear that it's going to be remounted. I would love to see it. And well, this is something that we do at Kumukuhu, is to get our shows over to the MAC and now the Big Island. We're going to be taking our last show to the Big Island. And you're right, it's not just important to get them to the other islands, but I think that it's really important to get our stories onto the continent. Just to, when I moved here, I thought it was just another state. And I'm embarrassed to say that it's the truth. And I'm, as a fairly well-educated, well-read person growing up in the Midwest, I thought it was just another state. And there's so much about our lives here and the people here and the fact that people have, there's an abundance of bumper stickers that say Eddie Wingo. That speaks to a great deal about this place also. So I really hope the story gets some wings and legs and whatever else it needs.
Yeah, we're trying to submit it to International Performing Arts for Youth, which is a big TYA festival that happens in Pittsburgh. So we'd love to see it grow legs and wings and tails and fins, so anything else to get us going.
Any more? What's on your horizon with?
I direct at UH, and so the BFG, the Big Friendly Giant by Roald Dahl, is coming up for me.
Oh, when does that?
More
open?
puppets.
More puppets.
Yeah, it goes up in November, so soon.
Roald Dahl is a little warped.
He is. I love it.
Wonderfully warped.
Wonderfully warped. Yes, indeed.
There's a lot of opportunity for puppets.
Indeed.
There.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And you said, I'm sorry, say when it opens? again?
Opens November 14th
November 14th.
at Kennedy Theater.
And, people can find information about that on kennedytheater.com, .org.
One of those, UH Manoa Theater.
One of those, people will find it. And you teach at Punahou, don't you? So, how lucky those students are, I think, to have someone with your heart and soul.
Oh, it was so much fun to have 1st through 8th grade at Punahou all go to the play.
Oh.
So that was very cool, and to have that support from the school, and I'm just so pleased that 8,000 kids, as Eden Lee was saying, a new generation. It's Tutu Whale is telling the story to Kaleo, and so it's sort of representative.
It was paralleled and
Yes.
it's in the audience. That is awesome. Thank you both so much for being here and for doing the work that you do and continue to do, and we'll look forward to seeing your script. I'm not a judge of the contest, but I can read these things. Thank you very much. And we're going to have to go now. I would like to thank you for being here, along with my guests. I would like to thank our stage manager, Sachi Slomoff. I would like to thank our production manager, Zuri Bender, who is in my ear, and our communications director, Chrissy Goffigan, and Jay Fidel, who somehow manages to put it all together. We will be back here next week with Center Stage. Until then, hui ho. I'll see you soon. Bye.